Alrighty, we are back for episode 7 of the Yes God Cast. My name is Megan, and this is the place where we come to remember our true divine identity and how much power we have to select our reality and align our own personal will with divine will for our lives. Yes, God. So last episode, I talked about what's really hood. I talked about the 3 pillars that I use when I'm coaching clients to actually learn how to recognize and connect with the God within them and then embody that so that they can manifest the lives of their dreams. Yes, God. So it's the ACE framework. Again, it's ACE. A is for awareness, C is for clarity, and E is for experience. Okay. And so in episode 6, I talked about the awareness pillar, which is the layman's terms for that is what's really hood. And so today we're going to be talking about, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the clarity pillar. And the layman's term for that one is flipping the script. We're going to flip this script. We became aware of what's really hood in our self-concept, in our view of ourselves, in our perception and view of the world, in our circumstances. So now we're going to move over to flipping the script, okay? And underneath this pillar is 3 kind of main broad categories, all right? So it's future state, it's choices, and it's intuition, all right? And first we're going to talk about the future state, right? Actually, no, first we're going to talk about choices. So what we realize, right, once we have taken inventory and once we've been aware, we start to see the correlation between the choices that we have made and maybe make on a subconscious level or just automatically that we don't even really think about that are drawing the results of our circumstances to us. It could be the way that we're thinking about something. It could be the way that we're expecting something. It could be the way that we're viewing ourselves or we're viewing other people, right? And so those choices need to move from being automatic to actually conscious. So we're going into the awareness, we're digging up the subconscious stuff, and then we are moving over to actually flipping that script, looking at the subconscious stuff, making it conscious, and making a difference, all right? So we can experience some new circumstances. So being clear about the choices that we're making, so that we can start to make new choices, so that we can start to have new perspectives, so that we can start to have new assumptions, okay? New rules of engagement, right? As this new version of myself, as this God version of myself, this is the type of person I am. So in this kind of pillar of work, we get really clear about what that divine identity, what that God self means to the client as an individual, okay? And once we get clear with that new self-concept, then we can start to design and engineer rules of engagement for that new person, okay? And I can tell you some of the standard rules of engagement for anyone who is embodying their God self is that they are not troubled or concerned with what they're seeing around them because they have surrendered and they have trusted and they have been able to be still and know that God is handling everything. The only responsibility that the individual has is to be clear about what the demand is so that God can supply it, okay? So our demand comes with our attention, with our imagination, with our thoughts, with how we worry about the future, with how we perceive the past, right? All of those things are actually creating. So because we realize that we're creating with our perspective and our imagination and the pictures and the scenarios and the narrative that's running in our head, now we're going to be proactive and flip those scripts. And we are going to completely ignore the circumstance, right? We're going to ignore what's going on in front of us, and we are going to double down on that God version of ourselves that we've taken the time to design and identify, okay? And so, again, some of the standard things for anyone who is operating their God self is that they have an extreme amount of gratitude, okay? Think about it. If everything in your life was going according to what you thought should be happening, or you were getting the results that you think that you should have, or that not even that you think that you should have, that you feel compelled to have, right? Because any desire that you have in your heart is from God, okay? Our desires are from God. And so many times there's been a lot of religious trauma that has happened, especially with this whole nonsense of telling people that they're born sinners and they're born wrong and they're born bad. That trauma has caused a lot of people to feel guilt and shame about their desires, whether it's to be wealthy, whether it's to look a certain way, whether it's to have a certain career or business. So here's where we start to shed that guilt and shame, because we understand and we accept that my desires came from God. God wants to express itself through me as an individualized fragment of humanity. And because I know that, I don't have to have any shame or fear. All I have to do is say, wow, I want it. That means God wants it for me. So you know what? I'm going to relinquish control. I'm not going to try and dictate how it needs to happen, what things need to happen to lead to the end desire, right? I'm going to let go of the who, what, where, when, and why, and I'm just going to focus on the what, all right? So getting clear on the what is very, very important. And you would be surprised that there are a lot of people that have failed to actually truly identify what it is they want. A lot of people say, well, I want more money. Okay, why? Well, I want more money. Okay, how much? Right? So we kind of have these broad, overarching wants that don't really get down to the root desire. So we have to be willing to really get clear about identifying. Listen, these are the experiences that I want to have. These are the people that I want to have those experiences with. These are the places that I want to be. This is the type of impact that I want to have. And we do some very specific work around that with ChatGPT that helps us to build that picture, to build that end, so we can get really clear when it comes time to visualize and use that God power within us, right? Because we're all using that God power regardless. And that's the whole rub of it, is that we are currently using our God power to create whatever circumstance that we see before us in our life. Our thoughts and our imagination have already created that. So let's use our thoughts and our imagination to create something different. And let's be really, really intentional about it. And in order to be very intentional, you have to be very clear. You have to be very resolute in what it is that you would like to see so that you can start to see it. All right. And this is why imagination is so powerful, especially when we're using it in this way to start to picture ourselves doing, being, and having the good that we desire. Okay, that's a quote that I took from Reverend Ike, who, by the way, go and check him out. His work is absolutely amazing. And Johnny Coleman as well, who I guess was his mentor. I just learned that today. So flipping the script through getting clear about what our desires are so that we can imagine and persist in our imagination, in our mind, that it's already done. It's already done. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to make it happen. I don't need to earn it. I don't need to force it. Even though my circumstances may be telling me the complete opposite, I'm not going to be moved by those, right? And that's the real key, is I am not going to be moved by my current circumstances, because I know that the power of my imagination means that it's already done. So I'm going to wait on God to do the heavy lifting. I'm going to be still and know that I and my Father are one. Yes, God! All right, so the third kind of pillar under this, the third bucket under this pillar is the intuition, right? And this is where it becomes, let me switch. Hold on, because my camera went out. Properties, let me change my camera. Hey, are we back in business? Okay. This is where it becomes very important for us to tap into our intuition, right? Because once we start getting into our imagination, right, and we start making it plain what it is that we desire and that we want to experience, God will start allowing that to unfold And a lot of times it's through the intuition, okay? A lot of times we'll get a nudge about something, right? Have you ever gotten an idea where it's like, oh, stop here, or oh, do this, or oh, make a video about this? You get an idea, right, that comes from God. And so it's very important to be open and receptive to the ideas that pop in your mind, because you have no idea the inner workings of how God is going to let that be one of the dominoes of how your desire plays itself out, okay? So the three things, again, just to recap about the clarity pillar of flipping the script, is identifying the future state, the future version of us that has already doing, being, and having our desires, right? Being clear about the choices that we have made before and the choices that we're making now. One of the main ones being, I'm not reacting, I'm not getting triggered, I'm not going to be upset, even though people are not telling me what I want to hear, even though circumstances are not looking the way I need them to look, even though my bank account is not giving the mathing what it needs to math, right? I'm going to actively choose to ignore that. I am going to choose delusion, okay? And I'm going to be talking about that in the next episode, so be sure to tune into episode 8, where we talk about delusions of grandeur, because that's what the experience pillar is about. But choosing delusion over paying attention and receiving feedback from your current circumstances, okay? That's very, very important to manifest what it is that we desire, and to also allow God to work through us, right? Because when we can get rid of that noise of the anxiety, the worry, the concern, the stress, oh my God, what's going to happen? Well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? Well, how about this? Well, how am I going to be able to pay that? And what about this? And like all that stuff. The answer to that is to choose delusion. And the delusion is, God's already worked it out. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. God's already worked it out. And I'm going to be so delusional. I'm going to be thanking God in the midst of the storm that it's already worked out, because I have my imagination to fall back on. I know that I can close my mind and I can see myself doing what I want to do, being who I want to be, having what I want to have. And so I am going to stick to that, because that is where the truth is. The truth is not in my circumstance. The truth is in my imagination, because that is the faculty that connects me to the divine mind of God, which lives inside of me. Yes, God. All right, so I hope this was helpful. You want to work with me, check out my offerings, and I will see you in the next one.